The human soldier moved slowly through the ruined city, his boots crunching against broken concrete and twisted metal. Smoke rose from distant fires, and the sharp smell of burning filled his nose. He had seen many battles, but this place felt different, empty, quiet, and strange. Every shadow seemed to hide a secret. Every sound made him turn his head, expecting danger. He paused near the edge of a collapsed building. His stomach growled. He had eaten nothing all day. His last ration sat in his pocket, heavy but comforting. He had told himself he would save it for later, for when he truly needed it. But now, the hunger was sharp and gnawing. Still, something told him not to eat yet. Something told him that tonight, nothing would be simple. A soft noise came from the rubble ahead. A small, almost quiet sound, like the whisper of leaves in the wind. He froze. His hand went to the weapon on his side, but he did not raise it immediately. He listened. The noise came again, this time a small cry, weak and trembling. The soldier's heart beat faster. He crouched down, moving slowly toward the sound. There, under a broken wall and tangled wires, he saw a small figure. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. Its skin was pale with a soft glow, and its large eyes reflected the dim light around them. The creature was tiny, no taller than a child. Its thin arms clutched at its chest, and it shivered. The soldier swallowed hard. He had faced aliens before, fierce, dangerous enemies. But this was different. This creature looked scared, weak, and lost. His training told him to be careful. It could be a trap. He had seen too many ambushes in his life. But something in him softened. He remembered the children in his own world, the innocent faces he had sworn to protect. "Hey, it's okay," he whispered, keeping his voice low and gentle. The creature flinched, its eyes widening. It did not run, but it did not move closer either. The soldier reached slowly into his pocket, pulling out a small piece of his ration. He held it out, keeping his other hand near his weapon, just in case. The alien child stared at the food, then back at him, its breathing shaky. For a moment, neither moved. The soldier felt the weight of the moment press down on him. What if it attacked? What if it was a spy or a trap? But the child did not strike. It only stared, hungry and frightened. He set the food gently on the ground, stepping back. The alien child hesitated, then moved forward and picked it up carefully, its small fingers trembling. The soldier watched, alert and tense. Every instinct screamed danger, but every heartbeat whispered the same thing. This child needed help. Suddenly, a noise echoed from the shadows. Something moved fast, a sharp alien hiss that made the soldier spin around. He raised his weapon, eyes scanning the darkness. Nothing, just shadows and silence. He turned back to the child. It had eaten only a little of the food, looking up at him with wide, trusting eyes. The soldier exhaled slowly, trying to calm his nerves. He realized he was not alone, not just with this small alien, but in this strange, dangerous world. There were enemies nearby, and he had to stay alert. But for the first time in days, he felt a strange warmth, a small hope. He crouched beside the child. "Don't worry. I won't let anything happen to you," he said softly. The child blinked, its glowing eyes reflecting a tiny light in the darkness. It did not speak, but the soldier understood somehow. Trust had begun. As the wind howled through the broken buildings, the soldier knew one thing for certain. Tonight, nothing would be ordinary. Every shadow could hide danger. Every step could bring a threat. But he also knew that sometimes, courage was not in fighting, it was in protecting, even when it meant risking everything. And so, with the last light of the dying sun falling over the ruins, the human soldier stayed close to the alien child. The world around them was dangerous, broken, and silent. But in that small moment, there was hope. And that hope was stronger than any fear. The night was dark, but the ruins glowed. faintly under the distant fires. The human soldier tightened his grip on his weapon as he moved cautiously through the wreckage. The alien child followed him, small and silent, its glowing eyes flickering with fear and curiosity. Every step was a careful balance, one wrong move, and danger could strike from anywhere. As they moved deeper into the broken city, the soldier noticed something strange. Scorch marks on the walls did not match the weapons of the aliens he had fought before. They were precise, almost surgical, like someone had planned the destruction. He knelt and examined the marks closely. His trained eyes caught a pattern one. That did not belong to the chaotic attacks he had survived. The alien child tugged at his sleeve, pointing toward a small pile of rubble. With careful hands, he lifted the debris and found a small device, flickering weakly. It emitted soft lights and a low hum. The soldier crouched, studying it. Symbols on the screen were unfamiliar, alien, yet they seemed to communicate something. A map? A warning? He wasn't sure, but his instincts screamed. This device was important. Suddenly a flash of movement made him spin around. Shadows twisted and shifted in the ruined streets. He raised his weapon, heart pounding, but nothing attacked. The silence was heavy, almost too heavy. Then, the alien child pointed again toward a wall, where strange markings glowed faintly in the darkness. The soldier crouched beside the wall. Carefully, he touched the markings. A sudden image flashed in his mind, not like a vision, but like a memory that did not belong to him. He saw a group of aliens different from the ones he had fought, protecting something, then being attacked by unknown forces. And in the middle, a small child, frightened and alone. His breath caught in his throat. The truth hit him like a thunderclap. The alien child he was protecting was not just an innocent wanderer. It had been hunted. The ones attacking it were the same enemies who had started the war. This child had survived when so many others had not. And somehow it held the key to understanding the chaos, the attacks, and perhaps even the future of the war. His mind raced. Could he trust this child? Could he believe it was truly innocent? And yet, he remembered the way it had looked at him last night. No malice, only fear. His gut told him the child was genuine. "Stay close," he whispered, crouching lower and moving toward a safer path. The alien child followed, its small hand brushing against his arm for comfort. The soldier's senses were on high alert. Every sound was amplified, the distant crack of metal, the hiss of the wind through broken pipes, the faint rustle of unseen creatures. They reached a partially collapsed building, and the soldier decided to take a brief rest. He set the child down gently, watching as it explored the shadows with careful curiosity. His own hunger gnawed at him, but he ignored it. Food could wait. Understanding the child and keeping it safe was far more important. Suddenly, a sharp sound echoed from the other side of the street. The soldier froze, listening intently. Something large was moving, careful but deliberate. The air felt heavier, charged with danger. He motioned to the child, pointing toward a narrow alley. Without hesitation, the child moved silently, trusting him completely. As they ducked into the alley, the soldier realized how fragile life was in this world. One misstep, one wrong choice, and both of them could be gone. Yet, he felt a strange determination. He had fought countless battles before. But this was different. Protecting this child was not just about survival. It was about humanity. It was about proving that even in the darkest times, courage and compassion could shine through. The soldier paused to examine the alley. Broken signs, scorched walls, and glowing marks hinted at more secrets hidden ahead. He could sense the presence of other hunters. The enemies were near, but they had not yet found them. He whispered, almost to himself, "We have to keep moving. We can't stop now." The alien child looked up at him with wide, trusting eyes. For a moment, the world outside seemed to fade. There was fear, yes, but also hope. And in that moment, the soldier understood that sometimes the most important battles were not fought with weapons, they were fought with choices, with heart, and with the courage to protect life, no matter the cost. He tightened his grip on his weapon and led the way, ready for whatever dangers lay ahead. The shocking truth was clear now. The war was bigger than he imagined, and the alien child was the key. What he did next could change everything. The soldier and the alien child moved cautiously through the broken streets, their footsteps echoing softly against the shattered walls. Moonlight filtered through the ruins, casting strange shadows that danced like ghosts. The soldier's heart was heavy. Every step he took reminded him of the ration in his pocket, the last meal he had saved for himself. Hunger gnawed at him like a constant reminder of his own fragility. He glanced at the small alien child walking beside him. Its glowing eyes were fixed on him, trusting, innocent. The child was silent, but the weight of its gaze pressed on him more than any weapon could. The soldier had faced countless enemies in his life, aliens, mercenaries, even his own fears, but nothing had made him feel this conflicted. He had to survive, yes, but now there was someone else to think about, someone fragile, someone innocent. The soldier stopped near the remains of a collapsed building and crouched down, keeping one hand on his weapon. He watched the child nibble on a small piece of the ration he had given earlier. Only a small bite had been eaten, yet it seemed enough to ease the child's trembling. The soldier's stomach growled again. He took the remaining ration from his pocket and held it in his hands, feeling its weight. He thought about his life, his training, the battles he had fought, the soldiers he had lost. And then he thought about this child, alone in a world that wanted to destroy it. The child had done nothing wrong. It was not a soldier, it was not a spy. It was simply alive. And for the first time in days, the soldier questioned the rules he had lived by. Do I eat? He whispered to himself, voice barely audible. Or do I give it all? The wind howled through the ruins, almost as if the world itself was demanding an answer. The soldier knew he could not ignore the danger. Enemy forces were nearby. One wrong move, and both of them could die. And yet he could not ignore the child's need. Hunger was a primal thing, but compassion was what made him human. The child looked up at him, small fingers clutching the last crumbs of the ration he had already shared. Its eyes glowed softly, filled with a mixture of fear and hope. The soldier's chest tightened. Every instinct screamed for survival, yet every heartbeat pushed him toward sacrifice. He knelt down, placing the remaining ration on the ground. Take it, he said softly. The child hesitated for a moment, then slowly reached for it. The soldier watched carefully, ready for any sudden threat, but the child simply ate, one small bite at a time. As he watched, the soldier realized that the moment was bigger than hunger or survival. This choice, this small act, was a test of who he truly was. He could take the food and satisfy his own needs, or he could give it all away and risk weakness. But weakness, he realized, was not in sacrifice. Weakness was in ignoring the innocent, in turning away when someone needed help. Suddenly, a distant screech echoed through the ruins. The soldier's heart jumped. Enemy scouts, or wild creatures drawn by their movement. He motioned to the child, and together they moved quickly, ducking behind rubble, every sense alert. Hunger, danger, fear all pressed upon him, but so did resolve. He could not let anything happen to this child. As they crouched in the shadows, the soldier's mind raced. He remembered stories from home, tales of humans rising above their fears, showing courage and compassion when it mattered most. He had seen bravery in war, yes, but never had he felt the weight of a moral choice like this. Giving away his last food was more than a gesture, it was a declaration of who he was. He watched the child's small form, glowing faintly in the dark. A strange warmth spread through him. Even in a world of chaos and death, Even among enemies and destruction, there was a chance for humanity to shine. Sometimes he realized the strongest weapon was not a gun or strategy, it was the choice to do what was right, no matter the cost. The distant screech grew louder. Shadows moved closer. The soldier tightened his grip on his weapon, ready for whatever came next. But deep inside, he knew this. He had made his choice. He would protect the alien child. He would share his last food. And he would face the consequences, whatever they might be. For in that small act of sacrifice, in that moment of moral courage, the soldier realized the true strength was not in surviving alone, but in helping those who could not help themselves. The soldier crouched behind the jagged remains of a collapsed wall, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of danger. The alien child huddled close, trembling, its small hands clutching the crumbs of food he had already shared. The city around them was silent, but every silent moment felt heavy, as if the ruins themselves were holding their breath. He reached into his pocket and felt the last of his ration. One small packet, enough for him to survive another day. Hunger gnawed at him, but the weight in his hands felt different this time. This was no longer about survival, it was about choice, about doing the right thing even when it cost him everything. The child looked up at him, eyes glowing softly in the dim light. There was no fear now, only trust. The soldier's chest tightened. In all his years of war, he had never felt such a responsibility. This small, fragile being depended entirely on him. And he knew what he had to do. He knelt and opened the ration, breaking it carefully into pieces. "Here," he said softly, placing it on the ground. The child hesitated, looking up at him. Then, slowly it reached out and began to eat one small bite at a time. Each bite seemed to take a part of the soldier's hunger with it, leaving a strange emptiness in his stomach, but also a warmth in his chest. Suddenly, a faint rustle echoed from the ruins behind them. The soldier froze. His instincts screamed danger. He raised his weapon, heart pounding. Shadows moved in the distance, fast, silent, and deliberate. Enemy scouts, he had no doubt. The creatures that had caused so much destruction were nearby. Searching, hunting. "Stay behind me," he whispered to the child. It obeyed without question, hiding its small form behind him. The soldier's mind raced. They could fight, perhaps, but they were outnumbered, and he could not risk the child's life. His only chance was to move quickly, silently, and hope. The enemies did not see them dot as they crept through the ruins. He kept glancing at the child, ensuring it was safe. Every step was a careful balance, slow enough to avoid detection, fast enough to escape. The last ration had given the child a little strength, but it was still weak, and he had to carry it if necessary. They reached a narrow alley, partially blocked by debris. The soldier lifted the child gently, cradling it in his arms. Its small hands pressed against his chest, gripping tightly. He felt the weight of its trust pressing down on him. He could not fail, not now. A sudden screech shattered the silence. The soldier froze, then spun, scanning the shadows. 2 alien scouts had emerged from the darkness, their eyes glowing red. The child whimpered quietly. The soldier tightened his grip on his weapon, ready to defend them. But he realized something important. He could not rely on force alone. He had to be clever. He set the child down behind a small pile of rubble and threw a loose piece of metal across the alley. It clanged loudly, echoing through the ruins. The scouts turned toward the sound. The soldier grabbed the child, ducked low, and ran through a side passage, the aliens following the noise, but not their trail. Breathing heavily, the soldier finally stopped in a small, dark corner of the ruined city. The child nestled close to him, safe for the moment. He looked down at the empty ration packet in his hands and realized he had given everything he had to protect this child. Hunger, fear, even the comfort of survival, it was all gone. And yet, he felt stronger than ever. For the first time in days, he allowed himself a moment of peace. This act of sacrifice had changed something inside him. He had chosen compassion over survival, empathy over fear. And in that choice, he had found the true strength of humanity. The child looked up at him, eyes glowing faintly, and the soldier smiled. No words were needed. Both of them understood the bond that had formed, a bond forged in danger, trust, and selfless action. Outside, the ruins whispered with the wind, carrying distant sounds of movement and danger. The soldier knew this was only the beginning. More challenges lay ahead, more enemies waiting. But he also knew one truth. He would face them all, and he would protect the alien child, no matter the cost. And in that quiet moment with the child, safe in his arms, the soldier understood the deepest lesson of all. Sometimes the greatest victory was not in defeating an enemy, but in giving everything to save a life that could not save itself.
The soldier sprinted through the ruins, the alien child clinging tightly to his arm. The distant screech of the enemy echoed off broken walls, growing louder with every step. Shadows moved faster now, weaving between the shattered buildings like hunters in the dark. The soldier's heart pounded, but he did not falter. He had made a choice to protect this child, and he would not fail. The child's small hand gripped his tightly, its glowing eyes wide with fear. The soldier glanced down for a moment and whispered, "Hold on, don't let go. We're almost safe." The child nodded, trusting him completely, even in this chaos. That trust gave him strength he had not felt in years. They darted around a collapsed building, narrowly avoiding falling debris. The ground was uneven, sharp pieces of metal and concrete threatening to trip them. But the soldier's training kept him steady, his movements precise, careful enough to avoid injury. Behind them, the hissing and screeching grew louder. He knew the enemy was closing in, their glowing eyes slicing through the darkness. They were faster, more numerous, but he had something they did not: the determination to survive, and the will to protect another life at any cost. He turned into a narrow alley, the walls high on either side, giving them a brief moment of cover. He pressed the child against him and scanned the area. There was a pile of rubble ahead, forming a natural barricade. If he could get there, he could slow the enemy down, maybe even lose them. "Stay close," he whispered. The child nodded silently, its small body trembling but trusting him completely. He lifted the child carefully, ducking under a broken beam, and ran. The enemy hisses and screeches grew frantic, their shadows stretching over the walls as they tried to anticipate their path. Suddenly, a piece of debris shifted beneath his boot, sending a sharp clatter echoing through the alley. He froze, for a heartbeat, heart hammering. The enemies must have heard. They were coming faster now, their red eyes glowing brighter. The soldier knew he could not stop. They would catch him if he hesitated. He pushed forward, adrenaline sharpening every sense. His ears picked up every sound: the crunch of debris, the faint whimper of the child, the distant screeching of the hunters. He leaped over broken pipes, ducked under metal bars, and slid down a small slope, carrying the child like it was the most precious thing in the universe, which, in truth, it was. A sudden noise to his right made him spin. 2 alien scouts appeared, blocking the narrow path ahead. There was no way through. The soldier pressed the child close to his chest and whispered, "Trust me." He spotted a small gap between the rubble and a fallen wall. With a burst of strength, he dove through it, landing hard on the other side. The child gasped, gripping him tighter. The enemy paused, unsure, then continued their chase after him. The soldier kept moving, weaving through the labyrinth of ruins. He could feel the child's small heartbeat against his chest, racing with fear and exertion. He whispered, "Almost. There, just a little further." Every muscle ached, every step was pain, but he could not stop. Stopping meant failure. Stopping meant death for the child. finally. They reached a hidden corridor beneath the ruins, a small, dark tunnel, partially collapsed but passable. The soldier lowered the child inside, shielding it with his body. The sounds of pursuit faded slightly. He listened carefully, ensuring the enemies had not found the entrance. The child looked up at him, eyes wide and shining. "You saved me," it whispered softly. The soldier shook his head, too tired to speak, but his eyes said it all. He had given everything, risked everything, and he would continue to do so. For a moment, the world outside seemed distant. Only the two of them existed in that dark, cramped tunnel. The soldier's chest rose and fell with exhaustion, but his resolve was unbroken. The chase had not ended. The danger was still real, but he had proven one thing: no enemy could break him when protecting someone who could not protect themselves. Outside, the ruins stretched endlessly, filled with danger, shadows, and the unknown. But in that small, dark tunnel, there was a fragile sense of safety. The soldier knew the battle was far from over. The war had not ended. The enemies were still hunting. And the child held secrets that could change everything. Yet for now, he allowed himself one thought. He had survived the chase, protected the child, and taken another step towards something bigger than war, something truly human. The soldier crouched in the hidden tunnel, his chest heaving from the chase. The alien child huddled close to him, its small, glowing body shaking but safe for now. Outside, the ruins whispered with the wind, carrying distant sounds of movement. The enemies were still out there, hunting. Yet inside the narrow corridor, there was a fragile silence, a momentary peace that allowed the soldier to think. He glanced at the child, who looked up at him with wide, trusting eyes. "Who are you?" he whispered softly. The child blinked slowly, then reached for a small device clutched in its tiny hands. It was the same device the soldier had found earlier, the one that had shown glimpses of the truth, in flashes of light and strange symbols. The soldier took the device carefully. The screen flickered, glowing brighter in the dim tunnel. As he studied it, the symbols shifted, forming shapes he could understand: a map of the battlefield, locations of enemy forces, and something else. Something that made his heart skip. A beat that the device revealed the shocking truth. The alien child was more than just a survivor. It carried information vital to ending the war. Its species was being hunted unfairly, blamed for destruction they had not caused. The attacks had been orchestrated by a hidden enemy, one that wanted chaos, death, and fear to spread across the planets. This child held the key to exposing them. The soldier's mind raced. If this information reached the right people, countless lives could be saved, both human and alien. He realized that the child's survival was more than an act of kindness. It was crucial for the future of both worlds. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him suddenly. The child touched his arm, its small glowing fingers trembling. It was as if it understood the soldier's thoughts. Even though it could not speak, it trusted him to make the right decision. The soldier swallowed hard. He had given the child his last meal, risking his own survival. Now he had to protect it again, this time, not just from hunger or the immediate danger, but from the forces that sought to destroy it and the truth it carried. A faint rumble echoed from the tunnel entrance. Enemy scouts were near, drawn by the noise of the earlier chase. The soldier's pulse quickened. He had to move, but he also had to protect the device and the child. Every second counted. He whispered, "Stay close. We have to move fast." The child nodded silently and held onto his arm as they navigated the narrow passages. Shadows danced across the walls, and the distant sounds of pursuit grew louder. The soldier's grip on his weapon tightened, but his mind remained sharp. He knew that fighting blindly would end badly. Strategy was their only chance. As they emerged into a partially collapsed street, the soldier paused behind a fallen wall. He spread his hands over the device, shielding it from view. The child looked up at him, eyes glowing with fear, but also trust. And then he realized something else: the child species was capable of far more than humans had imagined. They were intelligent, resourceful, and peaceful. Yet they had been hunted and misunderstood. The revelation struck him like lightning. This child was not only a survivor, but a symbol. A symbol that humanity could rise above fear and hatred, that compassion could triumph over violence. Protecting it was more than a mission, it was a chance to show the true strength of humanity. The soldier stood, pulling the child close. Outside, the wind howled, carrying the distant cries of approaching enemies. He tightened his grip on his weapon and on the child. "We can do this," he whispered, more to himself than to the child. "We have to survive, for both our worlds." For a moment, the ruins seemed less dangerous, less broken. The soldier understood the full truth now. Courage was not just about fighting. It was about protecting, about sacrifice, and about making the right choices even when the world seemed against you. And as the child's small hand rested against his chest, glowing faintly in the darkness, he realized that their journey was far from over. The revelation was just the beginning. Ahead lay enemies, challenges, and choices that would test them both. But together, they had a chance to change everything. The soldier inhaled sharply, steeling himself for what was to come. The hunt was not over. The war was not over. But the child's survival and the truth it carried had given him a purpose greater than any battle he had fought before. The soldier moved carefully through the ruins, the alien child clinging to his arm. The wind whistled through broken buildings, carrying with it the distant echoes of danger. Enemy scouts still prowled the area, but the soldier's focus had sharpened. He had learned the truth: the child was not just a survivor, it was a key to stopping the war. And he had made a choice long ago: protect it, no matter the cost. They reached the edge of a small clearing where the ruins gave way to an open path. The soldier paused, scanning the shadows. For a moment, he allowed himself to breathe. The child nestled closer, its small, glowing hand brushing against his chest. The soldier looked down, feeling the weight of everything they had endured together: the fear, the hunger, the chase, the sacrifices. And yet, despite the danger, he felt hope. "Stay close," he whispered. The child nodded silently, trusting him completely. That trust had carried them through the darkness, and it would guide them now. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the clearing. The enemy scouts had found them again, their glowing eyes scanning the ruins. The soldier's heart pounded, but he did not hesitate. He raised his weapon, stepping between the child and the threat. He could see now that brute force alone would not win this fight. Strategy, courage, and timing were just as important. He led the child behind the broken remains of a building, ducking low and moving silently. The enemies hesitated, unsure where the small forms had gone. The soldier's pulse raced. Every step counted. One misstep could end everything. Then he remembered the device, the key to exposing the hidden enemy and ending the war. He held it tightly, shielding it from view. The child's small hand rested against it, glowing faintly. Together, they represented something bigger than themselves: the hope for both worlds. As the scouts advanced, the soldier made his move. He led them into a narrow passage, one that forced the enemies to slow down, their numbers working against them in the confined space. He ducked and weaved, using every bit of training and experience he had. The child followed without hesitation, trusting him completely. Finally, they emerged onto higher ground, a small platform overlooking the ruins. From here, the soldier could see more enemy forces gathering below. But he had a plan. Using the device, he activated a signal that sent flashes of light and strange sounds across the battlefield. The enemies froze, confused and disoriented. The device revealed the truths the alien child species had been wronged. The war was based on lies, and the hidden enemy was exposed. The scouts hesitated, unsure what to do next. The soldier's chest rose and fell with deep breaths. He stepped forward, holding the child protectively. "It's over," he whispered. The child looked up at him, eyes wide and glowing softly. The soldiers, both human and alien below, began to recognize the truth. They lowered their weapons. For the first time in what felt like forever, the soldier felt a sense of peace. The child was safe. The war, fueled by lies and fear, had a chance to end. The sacrifices, the hunger, the danger it had all led to. This moment, he knelt down, looking at the small alien child. "You're safe now," he said softly. The child's glowing eyes reflected relief, trust, and something else, a promise of a future free from fear. The soldier realized that humanity's strength was not just in weapons or training, but in compassion, courage, and the willingness to protect those who could not protect themselves. Outside, the wind carried distant sounds of life returning, the faint calls of other survivors, the movement of those once hunted, now safe. The soldier smiled, feeling the weight of exhaustion and relief all at once. He had given everything: his last meal, his safety, his all, but in return, he had saved a life, and maybe even a species. The alien child reached up, touching his face gently, as if thanking him without words. The soldier nodded, understanding perfectly. Sometimes words were not needed. Actions spoke louder, and as the sun began to rise over the ruined city, casting golden light across broken streets and shattered buildings, the soldier knew something profound. Humanity could triumph not through power alone, but through heart, sacrifice, and unwavering courage. The bond between human and alien, protector and protected, would be remembered as a symbol of what humans could be: heroes, not just in war, but in compassion. Together, the soldier and the child walked toward the rising sun, leaving the ruins behind. The war was not fully over, but hope had been restored. And sometimes, hope was the greatest victory of all.